Welcome to our June New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative Technical Assistance Coffee Chat. My name is Samantha Chrysler, and I'm the Communications Specialist here at New Jersey Sea Grant Consortium. And I'm helping out the NJCRC with this coffee chat program through facilitation and meeting planning. So for those of you who are here for the first time, the NJCRC is a network of coastal resilience professionals, and the purpose of this coffee chat program is to better facilitate connections between local communities and stakeholders who have technical assistance needs with the NJCRC members who can assist with these needs. As you can see on the slide, these views expressed during this coffee chat are the presenter's own and do not reflect the official policies or positions of the New Jersey Sea Grant the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative or any of its partners. So I'm going to introduce Amanda Archer to continue the introduction.
Hi, everybody. Co-facilitating today. My name is Amanda Archer. I'm from the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve, who is also a partner in the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative, who is bringing you this coffee chat today. Just a couple of ground rules before we get started. I ask kindly that participants keep themselves on mute while our guests are speaking. You may type questions into the chat as we go, and we'll take questions during the discussion after all our guests have presented. You may also raise your hand and come off mute during the discussion to participate, and we also encourage you to do so. So today we'll talk about and learn about opportunities for building resilience partnerships with the Department of Defense, Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration, also known as the REPI program, and Centennial Landscapes Partnership. We'll see how these projects are growing and evolving to advance climate change resilience initiatives. And with that, Tony, if you want to start getting your presentation ready, I'll introduce our first speaker, Tony Danisi. He's the Senior Program Manager of the Encroachment Management and the Asset Management Sustainability and Land Use Division for HQ, Naval Facilities Engineering Command in Washington, D.C. In this capacity, he's responsible for developing, promoting, and managing many of the Navy's encroachment management programs for Navy guidance. And through his efforts of working closely with the DoD Readiness Environmental Protection Integration, or REPI program, the Navy has received $139 million of DoD REPI funding, along with $44 million in Navy funding for the Encroachment Partnering Program. So Tony, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. I have to look at that bio to make sure I sent you the right one, but otherwise, the number seems low. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to go quickly over the DoD's REPI program and how the Navy uses it specifically across the nation and also at Earl. A couple things right off the bat is the program for REPI. If you want to find out more about it, you literally can just go to repi.mil. And that is the REPI programs at the DoD levels program, and there is just a ton of resources on that site that's all public, including their webinars, past webinars, and webinar schedules, which are mostly for outside entities. There's a couple of internal ones, but otherwise, it's mostly about outside entities, and they have one coming up that I have in the slide presentation. So the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program has been around since about 2003-4. I've actually been part of it since the beginning of that, as I've been doing encroachment since 2001 for the Navy. And we use this tool to help to limit encroachment on our military training. And we first did that through trying to partner on to do incompatible share on acquisition to prevent incompatible development and promote compatible development in that aspect. And we've expanded that to a lot. That was both for incompatible and habitat. We've now expanded that authority to resiliency, and then we're doing a lot more just natural resource management type efforts and associated with habitat, and certainly now with resiliency type projects. Earl is actually a very good representation for us, is that it's doing all of that in one overall program. And then as a part of the REPI program in the DoD, they have created the Sentinel Landscape Program with 2 other federal agencies, and together there are now 7 Sentinel landscapes throughout the country, and a couple more will be coming online fairly soon. So, okay, so we use these 3 authorities in doing project proposals to execute them. The 2684A authority, which is really the land acquisition authority. The biggest reason why that authority exists is the ability for us to cost share with entities. And for us, from our program dollars, there's a limitation normally on what we call our operation and maintenance dollars. And normally we cannot spend more than $750,000. And if it's actually a lot of things together, that would also count as one project. $750,000 doesn't buy you a whole lot in a lot of areas. Otherwise, we have to do what we call military construction, which is a very programmatic. It's mainly designed around buildings and facilities and the construction thereof, and requires a lot of congressional approval. Then there's the Sykes Act Authority, which is a cooperative agreement authority. It's a grant authority. And then we have used the intergovernmental support agreements as well, and specifically at Earl for REPI-like stuff. We use them for other things, working with local governments and state governments. This just gives you a quick oversight that the original authority was in the 2003 National Defense Authorization Act. It's all about real property interests or water rights in the vicinity of, ecologically related to, a military installation, range, or airspace. In this case, there was several justifications. One was just to limit development or use of property that's incompatible with mission. Another one was to preserve habitat to relieve or current or anticipated environmental restrictions on military activities. And that second part of that, number 2, is designed around the fact that, unfortunately, the military is not in the business of just enhancing habitat for the sake of enhancing habitat. There has to be some relation back to that habitat for restrictions on our activities, no matter how good the reasoning is, kind of aspect. But it also could be a major secondary benefit of the first one, of limiting incompatible use in the first place. And then the third, years ago, they added reliance on resilience. I would say that there was always resiliency built into 1 and 2, because a lot of times to prevent some of the resiliency impacts, you're preventing certain types of development in the first place. So whatever that is, if you're trying to maintain your water quality because you only have so much water to share for residential, by preventing residential, you've already preserved your water for use, kind of thing. So legal requirements, it's pretty simple. For the 2684A, we work with state or local governments, agencies thereof, and conservation organizations. Doesn't have to be nonprofit, but if it is for profit, it has to have in its incorporation the main purpose of preserving land. So it's not, we can't just work with advocacy groups. In the big picture, with generally our partnering entities have to hold the land or transfer the land to someone else, but they actually have to make the purchase, whether that's fee or whether that's easements that we cost share on. For DoD in general, that there's a demand clause where the government can demand its interest at any time. For the Department of Navy, we demand that up front, so we walk away with our easement or some type of that property interest at the closing of the transaction. Has to have the encroachment justification, cost share. We have to demonstrate that. We cannot force a seller to sell. We can't use any of the government authorities. And there's the demand clause, which I said for the Navy, we do that up front. Earl is this close to closing on a transaction. We're almost there. The first one with the county. And once we do that one, I think several are going to follow fairly quickly. It's taken several years to get this done, but I think we're going to get on a roll as money allows. The Sykes Act agreement, it authorizes us to enter into cooperative agreements to improve natural resources on installations. The authority then was amended several times. We now can do it off base. And that's a key component here because we now do these things much more for REPI. It's about off-base, nature-based type solutions. We're about ready to enter into a new cooperative agreement with the state, very much on wildfire management. We first started doing this with IGSAs with the state, but the Sykes Act is a better authority to really do that. It just takes a little more time up front to get it in place. And wildfire management has been one aspect. Beach replenishment is going to be another aspect of these two authorities we've been using. Obviously, wildfire is very important going on right now in southern New Jersey. It's a major player in several of our places that we're working. The IJSA authority is very specific to governmental folks and probably won't be using it much in REPI in the future. We're getting really good at the Sykes Act authority. This just shows what the military installation resilience means in response to our REPI program. As you can see, it's the things you would normally think about with resiliency. And we are reporting metrics to the Congress on this, and these are the 6 major metric areas that we are reporting. And obviously in this area, coastal flooding, wildfire is a major function in that southern New Jersey area. And actually the first bullet was pretty much taken from Earl's program or the REPI challenge that was submitted several years ago. But as you can see, this is just more detail on the resiliency aspect. And I'm focused on resiliency a little bit here, mainly because that is where the REPI budget is basically doubled in the past 2 years, and it's going to increase again. And the reason why is the resiliency piece. So the more a project has resiliency in its aspect, the more likely is we can focus funding. All right, so this is the challenge. I'm giving you quickly the challenge aspect. The challenge is where the outside entities get to apply for REPI funds. It's very important. I've got several slides on here because the due date for the pre-proposal is Monday of this year. Well, excuse me, for this go around for fiscal year 24 funds. So these would be funds that would not be told to people until sometime later in the fall that they're a winner. Last year, like I said, the state quote was granted $995,000 toward some of the cooperative agreement with DEP, excuse me, kind of thing. And speeding through, these are the focus areas for REPI Challenge. Focus area number 1, climate resilience. And You can get climate resiliency type funding from REPI for capacity building and planning, site assessment and design, final design and permitting, and the actual implementation of monitoring activities themselves. So if you're only at the design stage and are looking to potentially get funding, you can apply for design and permitting type funding before you even get to the construction type stuff. Then it's our incompatible development, so that's our acquisition. And the third focus area is habitat. So to be honest with you, resiliency is mostly what they're going to fund, oriented projects. Here's some of the aspects that they're looking for. Hey, can you leverage funds from some of these other programs when applying? So these are some of the programs: the Land Water Conservation Fund, FEMA BRIC, some of the old CC programs, and NRCS or Forest Legacy type funding. And so that's what they're looking for. Biggest thing they're also looking for is innovative, new areas, new partnerships type stuff. Everything else, if it's considered sort of an ordinary REPI project, then the service should be submitting that project in our REPI proposals, which are underway right now for fiscal year 24. New this year is all the challenge proposals are now done at the repi.osd.mil site. And you actually would go into we have a challenge portal. You'll create a online aspect, go into the challenge part of the portal and put in your information there as an application. Before it was all PDF and you would submit them, submit your PDF package online. Now they're just doing everything online. So that's new this year. Again, the June 12th date is next Monday by 8 p.m. So again, pre-proposals don't need as much information as, you know, a full proposal. It's designed around not overburdening someone to submit prior to having to put through a whole lot of info, kind of thing. So that's where it's coming due very quickly. All right, just to note the difference, something that Nick would maybe submit. So he is in the process of working on his fiscal year 24 proposal. And those are due by the end of, we submit them to DOD, usually the end of the fiscal year. This year we have a couple extra weeks, but he has to get going and submit it to the region by the end of July. He does that online, very similar to what the challenge is now. And he developed it, and there is no minimum partner contribution in his proposal versus a REPI challenge where it's a one-to-one match in that, because they are looking for the entities to bring something to the table, kind of thing, aspect of that. But when you're submitting for the REPI service proposal Nick is doing, I had 24 last year. And in the end, I was given, even counting my Indo-PACOM Hawaii money, about $29 million to allocate. I had 24 proposals. If you're a REPI challenge and you win, such as Earl's winning last year, they got 1 million. They only competed with less in that process and were guaranteed when they were chosen. Whereas I'm balancing across, keeping a lot of balls up in the air to make things happen across every Navy program. This is the Sentinel landscape slide I threw in there. I copied a bunch of stuff in. They just announced the Sentinel landscape annual, or at least it hasn't always been annual, but this time the expression of interest. I threw some of the key dates in there, but the biggest thing to look at is somewhere in there in the aspect is there's a website, the https sentinellandscapes.org. That's the main site. You can get a lot of info. The apply now part of it is get you to the application process time. It shows you where you can click on for expression of interest, how you can get a guide for how to do it, all sorts of stuff. And they're having a live webinar on June 21st. That's in there too, along with the link. But if you go to the site, you'll pull up all that information for it. The biggest thing for this in a landscape aspect is it's not just about DoD and enemy working out there. You've got to pull in things from USDA and Department of Interior. So that's the three agencies working together. They have a federal committee that reviews all these aspects of doing it. So it is large scale to some extent. It would not be the entire state of New Jersey. In this case, you'd have to pick a focus area. But it also has to be anchored around a mission, the military mission too. So, but that date's coming up as July 27th has to be in by the expression of interest form. So that date is coming up for Sentinel Landscape. I just noted this is the fish, NIFWIF, National Fish and Wildlife, has several programs that they help manage. One of which is the Coastal Resiliency Fund. I didn't put a ton of info in about that because it just passed. It won't come around again until next spring. But some of REPI money goes toward that. I'm going to show it right here. So they have about 140 million that they distribute, of which 15 million is REPI. So whether you anchor it to a military mission or other purposes for coastal resiliency, you can access funds as an entity for those type of things. And they had their own announcement. I don't think I put the website in here, but you can pull that information probably off of the REPI website. But that's already passed. They've already had their pre-proposals. They're getting ready to get submittals for final proposals on those. Usually, NIFWIF was also managing the America the Beautiful challenge that also just passed. The pre-proposals are in for those. So there's 116 million this year. REPI contributed about 5 million toward those projects. That has its own need with it and requirements. Kind of stuff. So the REPI part was where we had a lot of Sentinel Landscape solar mission. All right, and then this is a webinar that is coming up in August that REPI is putting on, connecting counties and military. So excuse me, very important if you've got county folks online or working with them. This would be a good webinar to join in on. And again, you can go to repi.mil and webinars, or there's a webinar section there for past and for future. And you can sign up for the listserv, which gives you the announcement for every webinar. You get on that, you get notified of a lot of things REPI oriented, including things like America the Beautiful or the Coastal Resiliency Fund, REPI Challenge, all those things.
Thank you, Tony. I will say the Jacques Cousteau Reserve, we were awarded an America the Beautiful grant to talk about marsh migration pathways, pathways to resilience to ensure a future for tidal wetlands. So that's pretty exciting for us. We're starting on that project this year. And then also I just wanted to introduce Nick to everybody. Nicholas Ginther, who is with us on the call today. He's the Community and Plans Liaison Officer and Landscape Architect at Naval Weapons Station Earl, where we'll have our site visit on Friday. So just wanted to introduce Nick since
I appreciate it, Amanda. And those of you who did RSVP, I'll be looking forward to seeing you on Friday. We might be a little soon for this year's proposal for REPI. But if there's partners in organizations locally who want to reach out and see whether or not Earl would be a willing partner to work with them in the Bayshore or the Monmouth or Ocean County areas for coastal resiliency work, you know, I can put my contact in chat, so anyone's welcome to reach out. And you know, whether or not we partner with, we have an existing agreement with Monmouth University Urban Coastal Institute, Monmouth County, and the New Jersey DEP, as well as New York, New Jersey Baykeeper, what will eventually continue our oyster research as well at the base. And I think Meredith is going to cue that up in the next part of the chat. So
Yes, thanks for queuing that up, Nick. So with that, I'll introduce our next guest speaker today, Meredith Comey. She is the Coastal Restoration Specialist, and she'll be speaking about ongoing and future restoration and resilience efforts located at the Naval Weapons Station Earl. The discussion will include innovative partnerships and coordination with the Department of Defense, and it has played a large part in advancing projects along the Raritan Bay shore of New Jersey. Meredith was the Coastal Restoration Director for New York, New Jersey Baykeeper for the past 15 years and continues to coordinate coastal restoration efforts with a variety of partners, including Naval Weapons Station Earl, OMSET, Monmouth University, Monmouth County, New York, New Jersey Baykeeper, Rutgers University, NJCU, and the NJCRC. So with that, Meredith, if you want to share your screen.
Yes, thank you for that awesome introduction. And let me get this in presentation mode. Wait, why is it not going into that now? Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak, Amanda. So yeah, I'm going to actually talk about how all of what Tony said can translate down to, you know, the people that are doing, you know, on the ground work, nonprofits, academics, you know, really utilizing these partnerships to get work done. I'll be talking about work along the Raritan Bay shore, but it's become a pretty good model, I think, for how you can put these projects in elsewhere. My computer is not, I might have to go off camera while I present because it's okay. This everybody knows that's on this call. Most of us went through Superstorm Sandy. So Naval Weapons Station Earl and the New Jersey Raritan Bay coastline, you know, is right smack in the middle of where Superstorm Sandy hit. It's associated with, you know, storms, sea level rise, erosion. Monmouth County in particular, where this work is occurring, is home to 53 municipalities and is, you know, extremely dense. Most of the population lives within 5 miles of the Raritan Bay shoreline and the Atlantic Ocean coastline. So Superstorm Sandy really kind of showed just how vulnerable New Jersey is to these, you know, big tropical weather disasters and sea level rise. Naval Weapons Station Earl is a Homeland Security zone. So it's based in Middletown, New Jersey, which hopefully most of you guys are going to see on Friday. Superstorm Sandy caused over $50 million in damage at Earl and a loss of critical infrastructure. Baykeeper had just moved our aquaculture facility and operations to Earl right after Sandy hit. So I saw firsthand like the shredded buildings and the different utilities ripped off the pier. So there's no doubt that there needs to be some kind of a buffer along the Raritan Bay shore and also to protect, you know, Earl's mission. Just a tiny bit of background of why Baykeeper, a nonprofit, even was at Earl to begin with. We've been doing coastal restoration and oyster reef restoration since 2000. Due to some NJDEP regulations for working with commercial shellfish species in contaminated waters, our work was shut down in Keyport Harbor and the Navesink River. So it was a whim, but we asked Earl if they would host us, since it was guarded by machine guns 24/7. Nobody was getting in there to poach. And that is how this really unique and awesome partnership began. We relocated all of our activities and our studies to Earl in 2012. So reef monitoring, biodiversity studies, sediment studies, all of that is happening on the base. I'm just going to run down a few of the projects, and then I do want to focus on our NIFWIF National Coastal Resilience Fund work, because I think that's most applicable. So we have several different projects happening there. There's a 10.7 acre site right now that's a nursery area, and where we do some experiments with urban techniques. The other great thing about Earl is, because we can use oysters here, we can really delve into what techniques work for restoration and living shorelines in an urban estuary. So many protocols and methodology is brought up from, even Barnegat Bay doesn't translate here. So these projects are really important to understand, how they operate in these urban areas, so that that can be transferred to other urban estuaries. So we have a 0.9 acre living shoreline or breakwater out there right now, which went in 2016. That was put in with some mitigation funding from NIFWIF and some DEP funding as well. That actually kind of turned the focus just from oysters to living shorelines and resilience. Again, it was right after Sandy, all this damage had occurred, and Earl actually came to Baykeeper and asked if we would be interested in, setting up a pilot there to kind of figure out how we can protect this remnant marsh and the shoreline there. We're still expanding this. Partners are Biohabitats, NJCU, Monmouth University, and Earl, of course. This project site is where we're testing oyster castles. So we set oysters onto the individual oyster castles at our aquaculture facility, which you'll see Friday, and then transport them out to the bay bottom, essentially creating this breakwater out there. We also have a 10.7 acre project area that was established in 2012. So that was the first permit we got for this area after we relocated all of our work here. This is a nursery area, also another great test area. Kind of, sometimes people come to us, hey, we're wondering if oysters would set on this and if they would grow. So, we have the ability to actually test that and put that out there to see. This is also the future site of a 10 acre oyster reef that is part of some congressional funding for the Hudson River Estuary. So this will be, there was 20 restoration projects that were authorized for construction. The Army Corps is heading this up. Other partners are DEP, Naval Weapons Station Earl, Monmouth University, and Monmouth County. So this will start construction in 2026. Right now we're in the PED phase. The shoreline stabilization project, this is what what we're really putting our work into right now. It's a 200 acre salt marsh that's at Earl there, and it's absolutely beautiful piece of land. The goal is to stabilize the shoreline around Earl while protecting the surrounding community as well. enhancing coastal habitat with nature-based approaches. You know, everything we're looking at here is nature-based, and to test again what works with this specific site in an urban area. So we were originally awarded NIFWIF coastal resilience funding for site assessment and design. So that was completed in 2022. And then we were awarded for phase 2, which is final design and permitting in 2022. So it's continuous right into it. And we're hoping that, I guess, in 2024, we will apply again to NIFWIF for funding to do the implementation of this 3,200 linear feet of nature-based features along the shoreline. A whole host of partners for this. We've got Biohabitats, Rutgers, Monmouth, Earl, Baykeeper, Monmouth County. So again, as these projects are building and growing, you know, we're adding on partners and able to get more work done. These are just a few pictures of Ware Creek. So this is the area of concern here. You've got, you know, that typical marsh erosion. It's very exposed. It's eroding rapidly. So trying to get in there with these nature-based features to halt that and to rebuild this coastline is the goal. So this is a lot of science, but my point of putting it in there was just to really hone in on partnerships. You know, Baykeeper and myself, I'm a biologist. I know what needs to be done at the site and what should be done to make these projects move along. But I'm not an engineer. You know, I don't know how to use all this equipment. So these larger projects, as they've been advancing, have enabled more partners to come on that really know what they're doing. The interdisciplinary approach is more attractive to funders as well. So we're able to build and add money to these projects. One thing to note at Earl, actually, though, the erosion is, you know, is great. It's 1.6 to 1.75 feet per year. The mouth of Ware Creek, which was the creek in those photos, it's actually shifting east. If you look at satellite footage or pictures, you'll see that that original mouth was pointing westward. So we were able to figure out, you know, wave energy is the primary cause. It's a tidally dominated creek, things like that. All of these things that go into how to put in a project that makes sense for an area. So as I said, we're in final design and permitting right now. So there'll be 3 design alternatives, which we've been coordinating throughout with DEP and Earl on, you know, want to make sure this actually gets permitted. So partnerships are key. This is where I'm going to end, but we started in 2012 with, you know, a 1/4 acre plot out at Earl and a very small aquaculture facility. Over the past 10 years, you know, we've grown this program to where now we are talking about 3,200 feet, a 10.7 acre oyster reef. There's been policy shifts due to these projects moving forward and statewide involvement. So you really, when it comes to REPI and NIFWIF, when applying for these projects, really kind of think outside of your own silos and look at an interdisciplinary approach to projects. These are going to be more successful projects. You know, engineers, ecologists, biologists, planners, we all have to be working together as we move forward. And that's going to result in robust data collection from all disciplines, also cost sharing, equipment sharing, labor sharing. Like the aquaculture facility is at OMSET. They're amazing partners. They help us with your forklifts and, you know, with labor moving castles in and out of the tanks. And it also helps provide that, you know, arduous match requirement that so many grants have. And it also helps smaller entities, you know, to advance meaningful projects. So often smaller nonprofits or just smaller groups really can't, you know, advance their science because there's just funding hurdles. Another important lesson learned as I've started working more over the past year, I've really worked with Earl, Nick, and before him, Marissa, and Monmouth University and Monmouth County to make sure, priorities and projects are aligned on all levels, local all the way up to national. We've got a lot of money coming in, REPI, BIL, congressional funding, and all of this money is funneling in. You need to be coordinating your projects so that they move forward and that they're permittable, at the state and federal level. This work is all great, but the permitting part of it also is a hurdle, especially up here in New York Harbor. Tony talked about the REPI program and all of that. So yeah, just, the state level and DEP has their coastal resiliency plan. Congressman Pallone is spending a lot of money, putting a lot of money towards resilience. Local level, you've got your NGOs, your academics, Monmouth County, of course, and just making sure everyone works together will enable cooperative agreements and MOUs that can be formed that not only make help the work advance, but also provide a mechanism for handling and distributing all of these complicated and large pots of money in an equitable and efficient manner. And with that, I am done. I am going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Meredith.
You're welcome.
So at this time, we will open it up to discussion and questions. So I'll have Tony and Meredith and Nick. If anybody has a question for our presenters today, you can raise your hand or put a question in the chat. We do have one question in the chat from Lynn. Can you apply for performative and visual art installation events to highlight and draw community awareness to coastal hazards, fragile habitats, and encourage resiliency? Can nonprofit arts agencies collaborate with the Department of Defense and other government agencies to increase public awareness?
I think I might be able to jump in a little bit on this one. I think, Lynn, it would be a difficult sell to command if we have to endorse a REPI application with a partner or develop some sort of agreement. I would really kind of, Meredith mentioned it, but mention the partnership and the sort of building a collaboration of other organizations. So I don't know how far that performative arts or interpretive demonstration would go on its own. But if you were able to actually partner up with an organization like Urban Coast Institute that we have an active program with, and be able to allocate some budget out of that total, that could be a potential avenue that we actually do get an installation benefit, or a community benefit in addition to the educational component. We do have a lot of that type of work going on for research, and it would also be part of that public outreach and development process. So there really could be some crossover there. But as a standalone, it might be too early to actually talk about.
Thanks, Nick. I also know that New Jersey DEP is working with the New Jersey State Council of the Arts, and we do have Devin Blair from New Jersey DEP. If she can speak on that partnership, maybe it will answer your question, Lynn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Devin Blair. We do work with the New Jersey State Council of the Arts, and Lynn, we've done a project with you on round 1, so it was a lot of fun. We are on our 4th round. It's kind of a little separate from REPI, but we are, again, on our 4th round. We're looking for community-based organizations to work with, and then after that, we will do a call for artists, again, like similar years, and partner up our community-based organizations and artists for projects. So we're open to a lot of different things. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Thanks, Devin. Do we have any other questions for our speakers?
I have a question for Tony. So first, Tony, finally nice to see you in person, kind of virtually. I know we've corresponded by email quite a bit. I had a question about the location of REPI funded projects. Are they primarily outside of the facilities, or do you do projects inside facilities?
So REPI is designed for outside specifically. They have loosened up a teeny bit for, I think, some of the natural resource aspect that comes onto the base at the same time. As long as we're not truly overtly doing that. And the reason for that is these are DoD budgeted funds. And then there's the service. So what DoD is basically saying is, I'm not here to do the services work that they should be budgeting for. But if you were working on a shoreline, putting in some natural infrastructure, and you're coming down and you're having to kind of come onto the base for some of that, then the answer is that's going to be okay. That's kind of what we're doing down at Yorktown. And at Dahlgren, we're actually in the water doing some stuff, but really between the two installation endpoints on the river, but it is in the water, it is on, quote, state-oriented land. But at Yorktown, the Oyster Project is on, I think, bottom stuff that we either lease or we control access to. So yeah, there's a little bit of that, but it is not designed around specifically, let's do everything on the base.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like, there are some projects that are weird about this because off-base flooding at our Barking Sands in Hawaii, literally the water flows through the installation to get to the ocean. And so they are working on the ditches in between what REPI is doing and something else that Old CC does, which with DCIP, Defense Critical Infrastructure programs and things like that. I think they actually updated their rules a little bit about that as well, with considered what's on a military versus what's on thing. I think the important thing from REPI though is not on private land necessarily. A lot of that nature-based stuff is going to be on land that is already owned by counties and states. And the ability to do work on those items, such as a state or county owned forest, and going out and doing wildfire management, and that's okay. Actually, it's even better because no money therefore is used to ensure an easement of any sort, to prevent, like you would with a private owner, where if you're going to do all that, spend all that money off base, you kind of want something that's going to keep it from being developed tomorrow after you did all the work. Mm-hmm. So, kind of thing. So, and doing stuff on other property like that helps with cost match, because in essence, the state can be saying, hey, we're bringing land, quote, into the table, or, the protection and whatnot, to say, hey, the value of this kind of things, and trying to come up with that partner match. Mm-hmm. There is a program, I don't know when the date is, the Land Water Conservation Fund program that is out right now, which is about acquisition for public like access and parks and trails and bike paths and things like that as part of their program. REPI is working with those folks to try to provide some of that match, but it's not overt. It's not like the other programs where they said, here's money that's set aside in our budget specifically for a program like REPI Challenge, Coastal Resiliency Fund, and America the Beautiful. The Land Water Conservation Fund has like $40 million. And REPI said, hey, we can be a match for that, but somebody actually has to apply for the REPI. So the entity needs to come in and say, here's my REPI challenge because I'm applying for this and I'm applying for that. Here's my matches. I'm good. Or somebody like Nick has to actually add it into their proposal. And as part of his proposal, he would be writing that the partner is going to bring X dollars, then they've applied for LWCF grant. And then down the road, he and I would work out, along with every other project, what money potentially could be made available to be that matched kind of thing. So it would work much better if it's a part of his own program already, places that he wants to prevent incompatible development, and it aligns up with a program outside like that, whether that's BRIC, FEMA, FEMA stuff, whether it's any of those other programs. The biggest thing with funding now is our funding for REPI that we have used for years, the DoD funding, or even the Navy's funding that we put into that program as well, is I really don't care where you guys get your funding from to do a cost share on a project. I don't care. Just tell me you didn't rob a bank, or essentially, I'm born, bred, and raised in New Jersey. There are certain Italian families that maybe that money shouldn't come from, kind of thing. But otherwise, and I'm Italian, so I'm allowed to say these things. But otherwise, I don't care where you get it from. I don't care if you get it from a state program, federal program. I really don't care. Those programs cared because those programs have match requirements. And if they said you needed to provide X amount of dollars or percent, what they weren't allowing for a long time was you to kind of use that REPI funds as your match. We didn't care if you used FEMA funds as a match, but FEMA might have cared whether you used those DoD funds as the match. That's been cleared up. The NDAs have been passed a couple times that said our money, DoD, even though it's DoD federal money, is considered a non-federal match to those programs. And so now if you can link those two programs, we have been linked a lot with Forest Legacy. Trust for Public Land has leveraged that program heavily, and combining Forest Legacy funds with the REPI funds to acquire large amount of acreage up in Maine, surrounding one of our Sears schools, kind of thing. So that's where it works best. It certainly works best if you guys can leverage other people's money, because I'm more apt to fund things where you've leveraged other people's money or large amounts of funding to get things done, kind of thing. So that's the big play in getting into these programs. That's why they put money in coastal resiliency, because there's a lot of NOAA money there. And so we got a program funded last year at Pensacola, part of their shoreline. They had a lot of other funding already, but the project that got awarded in coastal resiliency used, I may get the numbers a little wrong, somewhere between 4 and 6 million of REPI, and then there was like $4 to $6 million of NOAA. It's one or the other. Like one was 4 and one was 6, but that attracted the funding that way. So the DoD office is happy because we attracted new, different money, NOAA money, for this, and so that was their purpose of putting some of the money in those programs. Could they attract other people's money, other agencies' money in an area that we both want to work in?
Thanks, Tony. One more question before we have to wrap up. Meredith, have baykeepers tested or done oyster living shoreline projects in other locations along the New Jersey coast, exported to other coastal states or other Department of Defense installations?
So the baykeepers limited to where they can work, which is just from the Hudson Raritan estuary. Now with me transferring things away from baykeeper, we won't be as limited, so we can look at other areas. The issue prohibit us from doing a lot of work in the Raritan Bay. So my policy hat is on also when dealing with that, and trying to get these prohibitive regulations shifted, which they are. It's been like slow like a glacier, but that has prohibited a lot of work outside of Earl. So that is my distracted answer.
Yeah, there are other installations that have been working with groups on oyster beds. Like I said, the Naval Weapons Station Yorktown has in the past and is currently working. I don't remember the name of the people doing the oyster aspect, but we are working with VIMS, the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, and there's a lot of National Park Service funding for overall various things. They're doing sand replenishment, natural infrastructure on shorelines, and oysters as part of that project. So
yeah, we often look to that as work that can be done and like where we want to be. New Jersey is just a little slow, especially up in New York Harbor, where really work needs to be done because it's extremely vulnerable and urban. But yeah, that's why I'm excited, as this cooperative has formed and keeps growing and more money is coming in, that we're going to be doing big things in the next few years.
All right. I would just like to
I guess my meta
apologize.
question was just whether you'd be up for consultants at all. So maybe I'll get in touch with you. Thanks, Meredith.
Yes, please.
Josh Foster from Berkshire.
But just on an ending note, for those of you who are attending the site visit on Friday, I sent out information regarding the lead time up to the meeting location. Please wear closed-toed shoes or sneakers. The onset facility is an active field testing center, and the surfaces are gravel or metal catwalk, so sandals aren't allowed on site. There's little to no cover, so if you need to wear sunscreen or a hat or sunglasses, please bring that. Backpacks and phones are okay to bring on site, and pictures are only allowed in approved locations only, and please take those pictures only with permission. And with that, at the end of this coffee chat, there is a short survey that will pop up at the end of this meeting, and it helps us collect information to improve our coffee chats and tailor them to you. And with that, thank you guys for participating. And again, I apologize for the disruption.